Welcome to another episode of Rookie Farms. In this video, I'm going to show how we made our American flag for the side of our shop. We used two 3x12 pieces of metal roofing and connected them with wood pieces on the back as a frame in order to give us our surface to paint on. I wanted the flag to look as perfect as possible when it came to the scale of it. I wanted all the lines to be the right width, right spacing, as well as all the stars. And that took a lot of math and a lot of thinking to accomplish that. The stars especially were very difficult, but I knew that if I got it done correctly at the beginning, then the lines and painting and everything that followed wouldn't be as difficult. The laser level was a huge help in making sure that while I was taping the lines, I could just follow that laser and that would give me the straight line for the stripes. I made a few mistakes throughout this project. Luckily, the mistakes that I made were all able to be fixed fairly easily. This taped line was actually one that I messed up on. You'll see that I fix it later. I should have stopped that tape the same distance as the row above it, but it's not that big of a deal. I end up pulling it off later when I start painting. I finish up the taping here. It's pretty straightforward, and then I start getting into the actual painting part of this project. The white was definitely the easiest, went on the quickest, and just was basically filling in all the gaps. So here's a little backstory as to why I'm doing this project while I do some of this painting. Rachel first came to me a couple years ago, and I think she had watched an Instagram reel or video or something of someone with a dairy cow. And we kind of looked into it, looked fun, and that is what started our thoughts on, hey, let's maybe buy some land and try that for ourselves. And neither of us have any experience with anything animal related, farm related. I mean, we've never even done a garden. And so it's a little bit daunting, but we decided that we'd start working towards it. So we saved up, and then eventually last year we were able to buy some land and kind of start working on these projects. I spent a ton of time researching cattle and dairy cows, all the work that goes into it, what you need to try and look for land and housing opportunities that might be able to provide that. Well, that was Rachel's dream, and mine was a little bit more simple. I'm a big fan of the American flag. And I think one of the coolest settings or places that the American flag can be is on the side of a barn. And you can probably picture what I'm talking about, but those American flags where they're painted onto a wood barn, it's faded. I think that's one of the coolest pieces of art, if you will. And so it was always my dream to have something like that. Now, when we bought this house, we were fortunate to have a detached garage or like workshop, but obviously not necessarily a barn with the wood siding and all that. And I looked into wood siding, but that was just way beyond any budget that we had for this project. So I decided that this would be a great alternative and that I would just hang it on the side of the building. And it ended up working out really nice. I did a small project for a friend, and that kind of gave me the extra spending money that I could use to do this whole project. I think all in all, the paint and materials came in around maybe $200 for the whole project, but definitely more of a labor-intensive job than anything. With the red complete, that means all that's left is blue. Now for this portion of the project, I painted the background white, and that just meant that the stars were already white, I just needed paint around them. And in order to do that, I needed a stencil. So what I came up with was a thin magnet sheet that I cut into 11 star shapes. And they're all pretty much the same size. And I would just use those row by row and paint around them and kind of leapfrog. I thought this was gonna be genius and super easy, but at the end of the day, the magnets do not have the same effect as tape. And so paint bled underneath the magnets quite a bit. And not only that, but it was very tight spacing. So when I was doing that first row into the second row with my thicker brush, I really had a hard time. So I ended up after that second row going and buying small art brushes. This worked a lot better, but you can obviously see the difference. It's so much darker on that first row, which meant that I was gonna have to do a second coat. And that's not the end of the world. Second coats always go a lot faster, but this was a very tedious part of the project. It's very satisfying from this angle to have all those stars come off and get to see that clean white. But if you zoom in and really get up close to it, there were a lot of places that I had to go in and touch up even with the white paint. Not the best part of the project, but it is satisfying to watch all the stars come off and see the white behind it, and you kind of see the American flag come together at that point. This was another tricky part of the project. I had to work with these grooves that were in the metal, and there were about 2 rows worth of stars that fell on the groove. And here I really had to kind of bend it around. I wanted to make sure that each star was the same size, which meant pushing them into the groove and painting around them that way. Up close at weird angles, it can look a little funny, but the way we have it set up, you'll see at the end, it's at a distance, and it looks a lot better having those stars still be the same size into the grooves. As I near the end of this project, it really was a lot of fun to do all of it and kind of put my patience and attention to detail to test here. It was a very time-consuming project. It was a lot of fun though, and Rachel gave me a hard time telling me I'm going down to do my arts and crafts, but I think she likes it as well. There's a few clips in here that I didn't add, but I do touch up the blue, make it all look even. You'll see that at the end. Thanks for watching another episode, and hopefully you enjoyed. Kind of a fun project, and if you're ever looking to do an American flag, this is what it can look like. And it looks great on the side of our shop. And as always, feel free to subscribe so that you know when I post the next video. We've got quite a few in the works that I'm excited to put out there. Thanks.